At the time that I'm recording this, 2025 has just ended, and I watched around 40 movies that came out this year, and today I'm going to rank them all based on my personal preferences. Before we get started, here are some of the shows I watched this year in random order. I watched Andor, Invincible, Adolescence, The Pit, Stranger Things, Squid Games, The Studio, Peacemaker, Pluribus, The Summer I Turned Pretty, It, Welcome to Derry, Percy Jackson, The Olympians, Daredevil Born Again, Slow Horses, The Last of Us, The Bear, and Running Point. And lastly, here are some of the movies that I wanted to get to this year but did not have enough time to. Coming in at number 40, at last place, we got War of the Worlds. Some of these lower movies I don't really have a lot to say about, so I'll just try to speed run them. Honestly, I can't really hate this one. It has some of the funniest moments I've seen in a while, and I've gained so much enjoyment from this movie to the point where I could just watch it 100 times and still have fun. 39 is my Oxford Year. The opposite of War of the Worlds, I didn't get any enjoyment out of this movie, only feelings of shame and confusion. 38 is Champagne Problems. Roberto is really the only memorable part, the rest faded into a void that is my mind. 37 is You're Cordially Invited. I barely even remember this one, nor do I really want to. I think this is the actual first movie that I watched this year, and maybe that was a good thing since it means that things could only go up from here. 36 is Sideline 2 Intercepted. Now we're back somewhat. When we were done watching this movie, an ad for the new Lil Huddy movie came on, and after seeing his performance in that, wow, Noah Beck was honestly amazing in this. 35, we got A House of Dynamite. Really weird pacing with this one. Idris Elba doesn't even appear for the first half, and while he is a good actor, you can clearly tell when his British accent comes out in a few of the scenes. Catherine Bigelow should probably just call it quits at this point. This movie is only really good for the QAnon crowd. 34, we got a Minecraft movie. This movie is actually pretty fun. It's a step up from War of the Worlds, where at least visually this movie is appealing because it was made by the same guy who made Napoleon Dynamite. I did like the aesthetic of the film and the energy that the actors brought, but I can't really place the two on the list. But honestly, life when this movie came out was pretty fun. 33, we got Ironheart. This is technically a Disney Plus miniseries, but on Letterboxd it counts as a movie, so I just put it on here. I kind of rushed through this. I don't really have any strong feelings. I think people who hate this are being way too harsh and just cherry pick random lines to back up their arguments, but regardless, the show left me with no lasting feelings of anything. 32, we got Heads of State. Idris Elba really needs to hire a new agent. He's a talented actor, but ever since The Suicide Squad, he hasn't really been in anything that memorable. Anyways, I remember seeing the logo for this plastered all over my Amazon packages, so that was fun. 31, we got Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I love these last few Mission Impossible movies, so this was really disappointing. Most of the first hour and a half is spent recapping exactly what happened in the previous movie and then one underwater stunt. The last hour isn't bad, but it's a little too late. I really think if they just combined this and the previous entry in a 1 3 hour long movie, it would have been a great finale. 30, we got Captain America: Brave New World. I really didn't like this when it first came out, but it actually has kind of grown on me. I think with a few minor changes, it could have been a pretty solid MCU movie, but sadly, it might be Sam's last movie as Captain America. 29, we got Nuremberg. It feels like this movie is screaming, oh, please give me an Oscar, and I'm glad it seems like no one in the Academy is actually falling for it. I liked Michael Shannon and Russell Crowe, and the movie has some interesting enough messages and some eerie parallels to today's reality, but other than that, it's pretty by the books. 28 is Freaky Friday. I mean, as far as Disney remakes go, this could have been much worse. I'm glad Lindsay Lohan has a career again. It's a pretty inoffensive movie. I don't have much to say about it, so there's not a lot of me to get mad at. 27 is Materialist. I was actually really looking forward to this, so I'm sad to say it didn't live up to the hype as much. I thought it was going to be just like Past Lives, Celine Song's last movie, and it really wasn't. There's another movie on here which has a slightly similar concept, but it's presented in a much more engaging way, which I'll talk about later. But overall, visually, this movie looked really good, and Captain America and Mandalorian were both decent. 26 is The Phoenician Scheme. Wes Anderson is one of my favorite directors, but I don't know, I feel like he's kind of just peaked with Grand Budapest. It just doesn't really feel like his movies have any point anymore or purpose. He's just making them for aesthetic purposes and just to make something. 25, we got The Life List. It's very predictable, but Sophia Carson isn't actually that bad of a lead actress, and there's some good emotional beats in this thing. I thought I would forget about this as soon as I watched it, but surprisingly not, it stuck with me. 24, we got Wicked for Good. For the record, I haven't seen the original play, so I'm not an expert on this story, but after watching both of these movies, I really think they could have just made 1 3 hour long movie and just been done with it. There's a lot of fluff in both these movies that could have been trimmed down, and this part gets most of it. At number 23, we got Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Not as strong as the first movie, but better than the second one. I expected to not like the new characters as much, but they definitely did add a lot to the story, and I did enjoy the twist at the end of this. At number 22, we got How to Train Your Dragon. It's kind of hard to review this one because on the one hand, I do love it, but on the other hand, a lot of the things I love about this movie come from the original, which is one of my favorite movies. I do think as far as live-action remakes go, especially compared to the Disney ones, this one does a pretty good job, and the CGI on Toothless looks pretty good. At 21, we got Karate Kid Legends. I actually like this a lot more than I expected to. It has a much more grounded and serious tone than the show, and the fight choreography was very impressive, especially from the younger actors. It feels like a good balance between retreading similar plot points and adding new elements as well. Also Joshua Jackson. At number 20, we got K-pop Demon Hunters. I am so far away from the intended audience for this movie, so the fact that I enjoyed it this much is pretty impressive. It has a genuinely nice message, great animation and fight sequences, and some pretty good songs. I wasn't as attached to it as I feel like other people were, but it was still pretty good. At number 19, we got The Naked Gun. These absurdist kind of movies never really get made anymore, which is kind of sad because I had a great time with this one. That one O.J. Simpson joke and the toilet and rolling joke was really good. Definitely give it a shot if you haven't seen this yet. And number 18 is One of Them Days. I think movies today fall into two categories. You have big blockbusters from established franchises like DC or Star Wars, or smaller creative projects like Sinners or A24 movies. I miss the middle ground of regular movies, and this one really reminded me of that. It's honestly pretty funny and has a good cast, and even though it's not flawless or perfect, I have to put it higher up on this list. At number 17, we got Hamlet. I don't think I liked it as much as everyone else seemed to, but I still thought it was a pretty good movie. It's a very emotional story, and there's a lot of interesting parallels between reality and the actual play of Hamlet, and the kid actors are amazing, especially Jacob E. Jupe. He really blew me away, honestly. Other than that, I think Jessie Buckley was good, but I thought she was kind of overacting in some scenes. Paul Mescal kind of fell flat for me too. I feel like since Aftersun, he's yet to impress me again. Maybe in the new Beatles movie he will. Joe Alwyn was fine. 16, we got Avatar Fire and Ash. Yeah, I know I'm crazy for putting the Blue People movie above Hamnet, but here we are, I guess. Visually spectacular as expected, but what really surprised me was the story. The past two movies played it pretty safe, but this one took a lot of risks and really caught me off guard in a few areas, and I have to respect James Cameron for that. Number 15, we got Train Dreams. This one is slow, but very meaningful and well shot. Joel Edgerton is really good in this, and I hope he gets some recognition during award season. There's not a lot of story, but this movie is kind of framed more like a memory than an actual concrete story, which is hard to explain, but it makes this movie more interesting. It's definitely not as flashy, bold, memorable, or ambitious as some of the other movies on this list, which tend to be the movies I prefer, but it has a lot of soul to it. Number 14, we got Weapons. I'm impressed with how much the quality of horror movies has improved from where the genre was at a few years ago. A24 definitely played a role in that. While this isn't as terrifying as Midsommar or The Lighthouse, there are definitely a few scenes that literally made me turn away from the screen. Not just because of a jump scare or something, but because of what I was looking at was so disturbing that my brain couldn't comprehend it. That one scene with Marcus running away was one of them. If you know, you know. At number 13, we got F1. This movie has a lot of energy, very well shot, and feels like an authentic blockbuster, similar to Top Gun Maverick. I do feel like this does feel like a bit of a commercial to get people to watch Formula One. It has a growing fan base in the United States, and Apple just signed a deal to broadcast F1, so part of me feels like this movie is meant to be a trailer to American audiences for the sport. Nevertheless, seeing all the actual drivers like Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen, etc. alongside the characters in this movie is actually really cool. Number 12, we got Mickey 17. Bong Joon-ho's previous movie, Parasite, is one of, if not my favorite movies of all time, and I love how with his next movie, he decides to do something completely different, which is what Mickey 17 is. It's not as deep or as introspective as Parasite, but it was still an interesting concept and an interesting movie nonetheless. Robert Pattinson also gives it a great performance, also considering he's literally just talking to himself for most of the movie. Number 11, we got Wake Up Dead Man. To be honest, I think out of the three Rian Johnson mystery movies, this one is the weakest, but I still really liked it. Josh O'Connor and Josh Brolin were great, the visuals were amazing, I like the theme of this one. I did feel like the mystery was a little weaker and more predictable, and I wish the ensemble cast had been used slightly better, especially Andrew Scott and Cally Spaney. At number 10, we got Sentimental Value. Stellan Skarsgård is amazing in this. He's been one of my favorite currently working actors since Dune and Andor, and he gives such an authentic performance in this. Above all else, this movie does a really good job at depicting a realistic familial relationship that's been strained due to generational trauma and other events. I do think it was a little overhyped, but it's still a great movie. Number 9, we got Begonia. This one is really weird and really disturbing, but I still really liked it. It delves into the factors that drive someone to buy into conspiracy theories, which is a topic very applicable to the world today. Also, Jesse Plemons deserves more attention for performance in this. At number 8, we got Thunderbolts, aka The New Avengers. If we're being honest, objectively, this is the best superhero movie of the year, but I have personal bias, so that's why this is a little lower. Nevertheless, it has great characters, writing, tone, visuals, music, action, themes about mental health, and it feels like its own unique movie while still being important for the larger MCU and Doomsday. It's also one of the darker Marvel movies, which I really appreciated. At number 7, we got The Fantastic Four. I'm not calling it First Steps, that name is dumb. While I think Superman has more of an impact on me personally, this movie has less noticeable flaws. Basically, all the things I just praised about Thunderbolts are present here as well. I just think this is one of the strongest MCU movies and is only held back by a few minor things. I wish some of the deleted scenes had been kept in, and I wish they let Pedro Pascal give Reed a transatlantic accent. And while I don't hold this against the movie because I know this is out of their hands, I do wish Doctor Doom had slightly more of an active role in the story, but that's not the movie's fault. At number 6, we got Superman. This is basically tied with Fantastic Four for me. me. It reminds me a lot of three different movies. The first Avengers, where it's the start of a new exciting time for superhero movies. The Batman, where it's a character study on one of the most popular figures in modern media. And The Force Awakens, where it's a reintroduction for a lot of audiences back into a major franchise. However, I do think this movie has a lot on its plate with a Jar and Poor Bravia conflict, pocket dimensions, backlash about Superman's parents, Ultraman, Maxwell Lord's Justice Gang, Crypto, Clark and Lois's relationship, the Jimmy Olsen side plot, and then the whole thing about Superman losing his first battle. And I think all these story threads are great, but I think getting rid of like one or two of them would have helped. Nevertheless, the movie did have a big impact on not just DC, but pop culture in general, and it had a lot of real world commentary. That scene where the kid holds onto the flag and begs for Superman to come save them while the soldier points a gun at his head hit pretty close to home, and I appreciate that. At number 5, we got Frankenstein. It's movies like this that don't have me panicking about Netflix buying Warner Brothers, even though I still think it's dumb. But anyways, this is such an engaging and raw movie that kept me glued to the screen for 2.5 hours. Just an incredibly immersive and fantastic experience. Those are really the only words I can find to describe it. I will say I think the pacing is just slightly off, and I wish some of the themes had been conveyed a bit better, but it's still a great movie. At number 4, we got Marty Supreme. This was stressful, but in a good way. It's similar to Uncut Gems in terms of the plot layout, but it has a lighter tone, and despite the fact that Marty is an awful person, it still has a pretty wholesome ending by the end. I do think this will be one of Timmy's most iconic characters, alongside Elio from Call Me By Your Name and Paul Atreides. At number 3, we got One Battle After Another. I'm predicting this to win Best Picture at the Oscars this year, and if that does happen, I'd be pretty satisfied. This movie kind of reminds me of Inglourious Basterds was made in 2025 America. It's not necessarily trying to comment on the times we live in, it's more trying to understand them, and I think that's a pretty interesting idea for a movie. Other than that, the performances were great, especially from Sean Penn. Pacing was great, and was surprisingly pretty funny. My only critique is I think the prologue is a bit weak, but once the plot gets going, things really pick up from there. And number 2 is Eternity. So remember how I said earlier that I was kind of disappointed with Materialist? This was the movie I think I actually wanted. It's such an interesting and cool concept with great cinematography, music, performances, humor, and some really great emotional beats, especially towards the end. My only minor critique is that it does end slightly abruptly, but other than that, this was amazing. And finally, at number 1, we got Sinners. I don't think anyone is going to question me on this one. There are certain movies that just push the boundaries of what you can do within the medium of film. Movies that we just had to see them in theaters to experience them to their fullest potential, in a way that can't be recaptured anywhere else. Some examples of this would be Oppenheimer, Dune, The Lord of the Rings, Godzilla Minus One, The Dark Knight, etc. And I would put Sinners on that list as well. There was a moment in this movie that I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, that made everyone in my theater make this face. And that epilogue, man, genuinely just gave me chills. Alright, well, those are all the movies I watched this year. Again, this is my personal opinion, but you can feel free to argue with me in the comments. I might respond, I'm not really sure.